You probably started your day with a cup of coffee, right?
Uh,
That rich aroma, that first sip,
hmm
it's just such a ritual for so many of us.
It really is.
But beyond that simple pleasure, there's this incredible global market humming along underneath. And it's far more intricate and volatile than most people probably realize.
Oh, absolutely. And what's fascinating, is how that daily cup connects directly to these huge geopolitical shifts, big economic indicators, even the weather thousands of miles away.
Yeah,
It really is a truly global commodity, reflects this whole complex web of forces.
totally. Yeah, well, that's our mission today, isn't it? We're taking a deep dive into the recent, and they've been pretty significant shifts in global coffee prices.
Yeah.
We've pulled together a stack of recent market reports, news articles, trade updates, mostly from around mid-July 2025. The idea is to give you a shortcut, to get
Okay.
you well informed about all the surprising dynamics shaping that morning brew.
Sounds
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've seen some noticeable movement in coffee prices right around July 16, 2025. Seems like the trend's been down.
good.
What does the immediate picture look like?
Yeah, that's right. On July 16th, we saw pretty significant decreases across the board, really, on both the major trading floors.
Okay.
So Robusta contracts in London, for example, they fell by more than 3%. That's over $100 per ton.
Wow.
Yeah, the September 2025 contract closed around $3,405 a ton. And Arabica over on the New York Exchange saw similar drops, about 1.5%.
It's significant.
Oh, yeah. That translates to about 4.5 US cents per pound for their September contract, closed near 297.35 cents per pound. It's a pretty clear signal the market's recalibrating something.
Okay, so a definite dip. What's really behind this? What cooled things down in the market so kind of quickly?
Well, there are two main things happening, really. First, on July 15th, U.S. President Donald Trump announced this trade agreement with Indonesia.
Yeah.
It set a 19% tariff on Indonesian goods. Now, that sounds high, but it's actually way down from the 32% that had been announced before.
Right, so a de-escalation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That immediate sort of cooling of trade tensions, it definitely eased market anxieties, and that directly contributed to the price decrease.
Makes sense. And what was the other major influence you mentioned?
That would be the stronger U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar index, the one that measures the dollar against other big currencies, it ticked up by 0.5% in the previous session, July 15th.
Okay.
And when the dollar's stronger, it makes commodities priced in dollars, like coffee, more expensive for international buyers using other currencies.
Right, basic economics.
Yeah, so that naturally puts downward pressure on their prices in the global market.
Okay, that's a very clear connection.
Yeah.
Now, let's zoom in a bit on Brazil. Huge player in coffee, obviously. What's the latest from, on the ground? How's their harvest looking? Are they making good progress this season?
It's actually a bit of a mixed signal. Depends where you look, really.
Oh, interesting.
So Cooxupé, that's Brazil's biggest coffee cooperative. They reported that by July 11th, their members had harvested just under half, like 49.3% of what they expect for the 2025-2026 crop.
Okay, just under half.
Right. And while that's up from the week before, it's still lower than the 59.6% they'd recorded at the same time last year.
So for them, a bit behind schedule compared to last year.
For Cooxupé, yeah, looks like they're slightly behind.
Does that hold true for Brazil's harvest, overall? Or is that just one cooperative story?
Well, that's the thing. It's not entirely consistent. Another key agricultural consultancy, Safras and Mercado, they put out numbers suggesting that by July 9th, Brazil's overall 2025-2026 harvest was actually 69% complete.
Oh, okay. That's quite different.
Yeah, and that's actually ahead of last year's pace, which was 66%, and it's also above the 5-year average of 62%.
Right.
Their data showed the Robusta harvest was nearly done, like 88% complete. Arabica was further behind at 58% complete, but still the overall picture from Safras and Mercado looks like strong progress nationally.
Fascinating. It really shows how you need to look at multiple sources, doesn't it? Different data points telling slightly different stories.
Definitely.
But okay, despite these downward pressures, we've talked about the trade deal, the strong dollar, we know the market's never just one-sided. What forces are still out there providing some support? Kind of propping prices up or stopping an even steeper fall?
You're right. It's always a push and pull. One pretty significant concern right now is the drought back in Brazil.
Oh, weather. Always a factor.
Always. So Mar Meteorologia reported that Minas Gerais, that's Brazil's biggest Arabica growing region, super important, received basically no rainfall in the week ending July 12th.
Zero rain.
Zero rain. So naturally, that creates anxiety about future supply coming out of that really crucial area.
Yeah, they would definitely put some upward pressure, or at least a floor, under prices. And beyond the weather, there's been this other big cloud hanging over the market, right? This threat of another major U.S. tariff, but this time on Brazilian goods. That sounds like it could cause some serious volatility.
Oh, it's a huge potential disruptor. President Trump declared a 50% tariff on goods imported from Brazil. 50%.
50, wow.
And it's set to kick in August 1st. So that immediately raises fears of, massive supply chain disruption, especially because Brazil is the world's #1 coffee grower overall and the biggest Arabica producer.
And Brazil's reaction.
Well, they've clearly stated they intend to retaliate if the tariffs actually goes through. And they're working behind the scenes, too, talking to affected U.S. companies, even apparently encouraging their own domestic businesses to, lobby their U.S. partners to try and get this reversed.
And the U.S. is such a massive buyer of Brazilian coffee, isn't it? This would send ripples through both places.
Precisely. The U.S. is the world's biggest coffee consumer, and about a third, 33% of its coffee imports come straight from Brazil.
So what's the immediate market effect of just the threat?
We're already seeing it. U.S. coffee roasters are apparently scrambling to secure domestic supplies before that August 1st deadline, and that's leading to increased market volatility, kind of choppy trading, limited volumes sometimes.
So that fear, that rush to buy before the tariff hits, that's actually supporting prices right now, in the short term.
Exactly.
But I heard something about a really counterintuitive outcome. If this tariff actually happens, how could a tariff, which you'd think would restrict supply, possibly lead to a surplus? That sounds like a total paradox.
It is a fascinating twist, isn't it? And it just highlights how complex these markets can get.
Yeah.
So one trader pointed this out. If that 50% tariff does get enacted, all that Brazilian coffee that suddenly can't be profitably shipped to the U.S., well, where does it go?
Right.
It might instead just flood into the publicly monitored ICE warehouses, the intercontinental exchange ones, these big central stockpiles for global commodities.
Okay.
So if a huge surplus of Brazilian coffee suddenly lands there, it could ironically add more downward pressure on global prices, even though the initial fear was about supply disruption.
Wow. So the cure could be worse than the disease in a weird market way.
It's a classic example of these kind of unexpected consequences you can get in really complex systems.
Okay, so understanding those dynamics, what does all this mean for the actual global inventory levels, like how much coffee is really sitting in those warehouses ready to go? Is it the same picture for both Robusta and Arabica?
It's actually, it's really a tale of two beans right now, quite contrasting data coming out of ICE.
Okay.
So Robusta inventory, the stuff monitored by ICE, it actually reached a 10-month high. 5,492 lots on July 15th.
10-month high for Robusta. So plenty of that around, it seems.
Seems like a relatively healthy supply, yeah. Robust, you might say.
Oh, okay. And what about Arabica stockpiles then?
That's the other side of the coin. Arabica inventory, also ICE monitored, it decreased. Dropped to 831,612 bags. And that's down from a 5.5-month high they recorded back at the end of May.
So while Robusta stocks are building, Arabica stocks have been drawn down recently. Suggests maybe a tighter supply there.
That's what the numbers suggest, yes. Tighter Arabica supply compared to Robusta.
Okay, we've covered the global picture, Brazil's big role, the inventories. How do these wider shifts actually, trickle down? How do they play out on the ground in, say, another major coffee-producing country? Like Vietnam, maybe?
Yeah, Vietnam's a great example, especially as a major Robusta producer.
Yeah.
To give you a sense of how these global price moves translate locally, on July 16th, their average domestic coffee price took a pretty significant hit.
Okay.
It dropped 3,000 Vietnamese dong per kilogram, down to about 91,600 dong per kilo.
So it directly mirrored that global downturn we talked about.
Exactly. Hit the growers right in their pockets. And you saw similar drops across all the key growing regions there, like Aklak, Lamdong, Chia Lai, Ac Nông. It was widespread.
It really is incredible when you step back and see it. How many different threads are pulling at the price of that cup of coffee you had this morning? From a trade agreement between the U.S. and Indonesia to a potential massive tariff on Brazil, from how fast the harvest is going in South America,
to drought.
Drought concerns,
Right.
even the strength of the U.S. dollar.
It's a truly intricate web.
Yeah. And seeing how all those forces interact, it's really key to understanding the market, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, this understanding, it goes beyond just the price tag on the shelf.
Right.
It really illustrates how interconnected our world is, how seemingly distant events could be geopolitical talks, could be weather patterns halfway across the globe. They directly impact these everyday commodities that, let's be honest, we often take for granted.
So true. Which maybe it leads to a final thought. Given this potential, this looming